Hey everyone, so I'm going to dive into Polkadot today and give you some of the main areas what I think you should be buying and selling Polkadot and what is most likely to happen in the near future. So if that sounds good to you, go ahead and like the video. It costs you nothing and helps me out massively. Subscribe to the channel, and without further ado, let's get started. Now, the most important thing to note here, as with most cryptocurrencies, is that we are still in a systematic downtrend. You can see here where we are creating lower lows, and so far this is still potentially just a lower high that will deviate lower until proven otherwise. So the trend for Polkadot is still down. With that said, I still think that Polkadot has a shot of reaching this weekly range of about $9.6, which you can see is this key weekly swing high over here. And you can see that on the weekly time frame, that this is a clear key level for Polkadot. But in order for Polkadot to reach this level, I think that we would need Bitcoin to impulsively break $25,000 and probably zoom up straight into $30,000. That's what would give Polkadot the best shot to reach some of these upper targets. But if we did manage to reach that from here, that would be about a 50% increase in price. And to take Polkadot from these levels to current prices, there are some key areas that I want you to be looking at in order to join this uptrend if we are going to move any higher. So we want to identify the market structure and the order blocks which are going to provide support for us to move higher from these levels. And you can see that if we stay within this structure here and we continue to create higher lows and higher highs, and we continue this structure over here, okay, and we move up in this kind of fashion and continue to move to the upside up towards this level over here, the order blocks that I would be looking at personally, okay, is going to be this level over here. You can see these are the red candles before the up move that breaks the structure of the market. That's really important, okay? So we have some levels over here at about 6.2 and $6, which would take out the liquidity and the stop losses created on February the 17th. So if we move down into this area, take out these stops, and then start to show support in these levels, could even be some kind of swing failure pattern if we come down below into this level and then sharply close back to the upside. Again, that's showing you that you're getting support at this level. So that is the most immediate level of support that I'll be looking at for Polkadot. And you can see that when you use these trend lines over here, these are confluent with this order block. So that's typically why trend lines do tend to work. When you tend to combine them with one or two other indicators, then you tend to get a much higher degree of confidence in your trading. So if you come down into this level, like I said, and then we basically see support into this level, okay, and we start to see some higher time frame candles, okay, with some wicks to the downside over here, then you can probably try to attempt to take this to the upside to about $9.6. And if you bring up the volume profile over here, you want to try to identify where there's going to be voids in price, okay, and where liquidity might be tapped into. So you can see that these low volume nodes over here for Polkadot tells us that if we break this level where we're currently at about 6.5, we're probably going to get a fairly sharp correction, okay, of about 4%, which is going to cut straight through this low volume block on the right hand side. And then if we start to see support, okay, into this level at about 6.3, which is what you would expect, okay, there are some other levels of low volume which we might snag and tap into quite sharply at about $6.10, which is this level on the right. So keep an eye out on these levels, because these voids in price tell you that there's not a lot of business being done at these levels historically. So when we reach those levels, it means that basically price doesn't stay there for a long time. So if you see wicks to the downside here, okay, and then you start to close back into areas of higher traded volume, it tells you that basically there are some buyers down here and that there is the potential to take this up a little bit higher. The next blocks that we'll be looking at below us are going to be clearly this area of support resistance flip over here. And again, this is the area that we broke out from. If we just take a look at this over here, okay, this is the area that we were basing out, okay, and then we broke the market structure, come back and retested this area. But if DOT falls any further than $5.80 and loses the $6 level, okay, I think this opens up the possibility to tap into these areas of liquidity over here, which are the order blocks, okay, that preceded the move that broke out to the upside. And you can see that this area over here, you can see we've had multiple areas of support in the past. So this would be my last stand for Polkadot if we were going to challenge 9.6. Maybe we challenge 9.6 a little bit later on in the year, but you can see that on the Fibonacci targets here again. Where does that line up? It's a 0.618. That's this key level that we basically saw support from. So we might see support at this bottom end of the range of 5.6. That's one level. And if we break below here, I still like this area of about $5, because again, if we're looking to join uptrends, and this just tends to be a larger correction within a just longer prolonged move to the upside, and we end up doing something like this, okay, and we tap down here, that is still going to be Fibonacci target of about 0.618 and in between 0.786. And this for me is typically the golden pocket for joining uptrends. It's a really nice place to be joining, okay, because basically it really gives you a nice risk reward ratio. So if we manage to see support down here, and again bigger time frame wicks to the upside, that would be my last stand. I think if we get any weekly closes back here to the downside, okay, and we close back in this range on a weekly time frame, not a wick, then we're probably likely to move down into lower lows, take out this low, and really move down into some of those $3.5 levels that we spoke about earlier last year. And you can see that here we have like quadruple RSI divergence with every key daily high that we've made so far, okay, including the high that we made this week. You can see that on the RSI we're creating lower highs, okay, significantly, which is telling us that we are looking for you know, continued move to the downside, and that, you know, that this structure is ascending also in nature, which is my preference, okay, that I think that we're still likely to correct further down. I think for me this is an aggressive entry for me, unless something really obvious happens and changes in the next few weeks, that we can potentially take this back to the upside. But I think RSI divergence and ascending pattern into areas of weekly resistance, okay, for Polkadot, because like I said, until we get some kind of weekly close for Polkadot that's going to be somewhere at about 7.7, if we don't get closes up here, then the trend, like I said, is still back to the downside. Now I do think that there is obviously a trade here to be had on Polkadot, because it's likely that these lows are going to get tagged. I think that in bear markets we have to have a really nice range bound period of sideways accumulation before we move to the upside, okay, so that will be my main contention over here. And you can see that this area is still within this key order block that we broke out from, so it seems to me that on the long term that Polkadot has come back down into this range, and it's basically reaccumulating for another leg back to the upside. So that's how I would be reading it. The lowest that I think that we can go is that if we break out, or break down rather, from this order block of $3.5, we have one below us at about $3. So if we basically tend to range bound accumulate here and we make one big final push to the downside, I'll be looking at $2.7 to $3 as an ultimate capitulation low for Polkadot. Definitely something that I'm looking out for, especially as I consider altcoins too. I think many altcoins will still make new lower lows this year. But the trade to be had here, I think, is at these lower levels, if you can get some lower buys. I think that, you know, Fibonacci targets wise, we always tend to get to the 2.36 on major impulse waves back to the upside. And if this is not, okay, if we don't reach that sort of 236 now, which I don't think that we probably will, okay, you know, we'll reach it at a later point this year or next year. But think about it, down here there's going to be at least a trade of like 3 to 4 times your money. So if you're able to buy down here in the $4 to $3 range, I think that that long-term swing back to this key, you know, support resistance level of about $15, you can see that we've had massive swings here and spikes in the past. And if we bring up as well our VPVR, right, for Polkadot, you can see that obviously what we've got here is we've got this massive low volume. So if when we are eventually able to, you know, reclaim this $9 to $10 range and start closing weekly candles above it, I think that this area is just going to completely zoom straight through and blast off into here, okay. So that's going to be eventually, when that move comes, is going to be an easy 50 to 60% move, because there's no volume in price here. So we know that prices don't like to stay at these levels for very long. And what I mean by coming back down and reaccumulating in areas, if you just take a look at XRP, this is like a really nice example. You know, this is not too dissimilar from when Polkadot broke straight back up to the upside, okay, and then we came down here and we reaccumulated here for a good period of, you know, 6 months or so, maybe even longer. Look at this on XRP, okay, and then we made that massive move back to the upside. So that's how I'd be looking at a lot of these cryptos, right? And you can see that on XRP, just over here, when we lost that low, okay, back in COVID, March 2020, we closed straight back in, and then that was a deviation from the range, and then we continued to consolidate here before we moved back to the upside. So I'm just trying to show you this, how this, you know, what kind of reaccumulation patterns look and how basing patterns are supposed to look. They're not supposed to go back down into here and then move straight back to the upside. So like I said, when we look at Polkadot, and we could see something potentially similar here, where we basically move down here and continue to consolidate sideways, potentially even take out some of these lows at $3.50, maybe really quickly wick down to the upside and then back up. So that's what I'd be looking at for Polkadot over the longer term this year and into next year as well. So I hope you got some value from this video. If you did, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.